According to Dr. Ron Fessenden, MD, MPH, the average American consumes more than 150 pounds of refined sugar, plus an additional 62 pounds of high fructose corn syrup every year. In comparison, we consume only around 1.3 pounds of honey per year on average in the US. According to new research, if you can switch out your intake of refined sugar and use pure raw honey instead, the health benefits can be enormous. What is raw honey? It's a pure, unfiltered, and unpasteurized sweetener made by bees from the nectar of flowers. Most of the honey consumed today is processed honey that's been heated and filtered since it was gathered from the hive. Unlike processed honey, raw honey does not get robbed of its incredible nutritional value and health powers. It can help with everything from low energy to sleep problems to seasonal allergies. Switching to raw honey may even help weight loss efforts when compared to diets containing sugar or high fructose corn syrup. I'm excited to tell you more about one of my all-time favorite natural sweeteners today.
Research shows that when people work with a positive mindset, performance on nearly every level, productivity, creativity, engagement improves. Yet happiness is perhaps the most misunderstood driver of performance. For one, most people believe that success precedes happiness. Once I get a promotion, I'll be happy, they think, or once I hit my sales target, I'll feel great. But because success is a moving target, as soon as you hit your target, you raise it again. The happiness that results from success is fleeting. In fact, it works the other way around. People who cultivate a positive mindset perform better in the face of challenge. I call this the happiness advantage. Every business outcome shows improvement when the brain is positive. I've observed this effect in my role as a researcher and lecturer in 48 countries on the connection between employee happiness and success. And I'm not alone. In a meta-analysis of 225 academic studies, researchers Sonia Lubomirsky, Laura King, and Ed Diener found strong evidence of directional causality between life satisfaction and successful business outcomes. Another common misconception is that our genetics, our environment, or a combination of the two determines how happy we are. To be sure, both factors have an impact, but one's general sense of well-being is surprisingly malleable.
It might seem a little eccentric, but reviewing your work by reading it aloud can help to identify the woolliest areas. This works best if you perform your reading in a theatrical way, pausing at the commas and ends of sentences. If you run out of breath during a sentence, it is probably too long. You ought to be able to convert your writing into a speech in this way. If it sounds too stilted and convoluted, perhaps you could rework these parts until they sound fluid. It is unlikely that your reader will be fooled by the idea that long words make you sound clever. Cluttering a sentence with too many complicated words can prevent its meaning from being understood at all. A short word is always preferable to a long one. Why should anyone choose the word erroneous over the word wrong in an essay? Usually, writers who employ more obscure words are trying to sound impressive but can appear pretentious. Direct words enable you to control what you are saying, and are not necessarily babyish, but the most appropriate ones for the job. When you read your writing aloud, you will notice that the key stress comes at the end of your sentence. It is, therefore, most effective to end with a short and emphatic word to secure your point. Try to resist the impulse to waffle at the end of your sentence by trailing off into qualifying clauses. It might be worth relocating the clause to the beginning of the sentence or losing it altogether if you feel that it adds little to its meaning. Your sentences might be the most grammatically perfect in the world, but still, 'cause you're writing to sound wrong if you have misjudged its tone. A colloquial style, which uses slang and exclamations, is an inappropriately chatty tone for an essay. However, style can be equally jarring if your vocabulary is too formal or ambitious for its context. It is much more impressive to make complicated points using simple language and grammar. Asda has become the first food retailer in the country to measure how much customers can save by cutting back on food waste, thanks to a knowledge transfer partnership, KTP, with the University of Leeds. The idea behind the KTP was for the university, using Asda's customer insight data, to apply its research to identify, investigate and implement ways of helping customers to reduce their food waste. This was one of the first times that a major retailer had tried to deliver large-scale sustainability changes, with the 2-year project seen as a way for Asda to position themselves as true innovators in this area. The campaign focused on providing customers with advice on everything from food storage and labeling, to creative recipes for leftovers. Meanwhile, in-store events encouraged customers to make changes in their own. They will make changes to how they deal with food waste in their own homes, leading to an average saving of £57 per customer, as well as a reduction in waste. A key aspect of a KTP is that an associate is employed by the university to work in the firm and help deliver the desired outcomes of the KTP. As a part of the collaboration with Asda, Laura Babs was given the task of driving forward the sustainability changes in the retailer. Over the years, language teachers have alternated between favoring teaching approaches that focus primarily on language use and those that focus on language forms or analysis. The alternation has been due to a fundamental disagreement concerning whether one learns to communicate in a second language by communicating in that language, such as in an immersion experience, or whether one learns to communicate in a second language by learning the lexicogrammar, the words and grammatical structures, of the target language. In other words, the argument has been about two different means of achieving the same end. As with any enduring controversy, the matter is not easily resolved. For one thing, there is evidence to support both points of view. It is not uncommon to find learners who, for whatever reason, find themselves in a new country or a new region of their own country, who need to learn a new language, and who do so without the benefit of formal instruction. If they are post-pubescent, they may well retain an accent of some kind, but they can pick up enough language to satisfy their communicative needs. Humans love to complain to each other. It helps us feel less alone. Think about what happens when a family member or friend is going through a tough time. They call up someone who will listen to their tale of woe. Unfortunately, negative bonding is the default for many groups. In some families, complaining is the only way to get attention. When one person says, "I had a bad day," the other person has to top it, "You think you had a tough day? I had to do 3 TPS reports." The same thing happens at work and social settings. "Your child didn't sleep through the night until 6 months. Mine was a full year old before she went over 6 hours." It's a race to the bottom, and the worst situation wins. In Bitching is Bonding, A Guide to Mutual Complaint, Irene S. Levine, Ph.D., a professor of psychiatry at the NYU Langone School of Medicine says, "The reason why these conversations feel good is because we feel understood." People raised in negative environments learn early on. Being positive gets you thrown out of the club. When family dinner is a complaint fest, you're not going to risk alienation saying, "Wow, I had an awesome day. Don't you just love life?" Translate this into a work setting. People, often unconsciously, believe being positive keeps you out of the cool club. In 1953, B.F. Skinner visited his daughter's maths class. The Harvard psychologist found every pupil earning the same topic in the same way at the same speed. A few days later he built his first teaching machine, which let children tackle questions at their own pace. By the mid-1960s, similar gizmos were being flogged by door-to-door salesmen. Within a few years, though, enthusiasm for them had fizzled out. Since then, education technology, EdTech, has repeated the cycle of hype and flop, even as computers have reshaped almost every other part of life. One reason is the conservatism of teachers and their unions. But another is that the brain-stretching potential of edtech has remained unproven. Today, however, Skinner's errors are forcing the skeptics to think again, see article. Backed by billionaire techies such as Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, schools around the world are using new software to personalize learning. This could help hundreds of millions of children stuck in dismal classes, but only if edtech boosters can resist the temptation to revive harmful ideas about how children learn. To succeed, edtech must be at the service of teaching, not the other way around. The area that is now South Africa has been inhabited by humans for millennia. The San, the original inhabitants of this land, were migratory people who lived in small groups of about 15 to 20 people. They survived by fishing and hunting and by gathering roots and other wild foods. They did not build permanent dwellings, but used rock shelters as temporary dwellings. Around 2,000 years ago, Khoikhoi pastoralists migrated to the coast. In the eastern part of present-day South Africa, ironworking societies date from about 300 AD. The Sotho-Tswana and Nguni peoples arrived in this region around 1200 AD. They lived by agriculture and stock farming, mined gold, copper, and tin, and hunted for ivory, and built stone-walled towns. Over the centuries, these societies had diverse contacts with the Khoisan. Strife between the San and the Khoikhoi developed over competition for game. Eventually the Khoikhoi became dominant. These peoples lived in the western part of present-day South Africa and are known, collectively, as the Khoisan. If women are so far ahead of men, why are they so far behind? Reports from both sides of the Atlantic show that female students dominate university courses, yet women still do not make it to the top. A report on inequality in the UK said last week that girls had better educational results than boys at 16, went to university in greater numbers, and achieved better degrees once they got there. More women now have higher education qualifications than men in every age group up to age 44, the report said. In the U.S., 57% of college graduates in 2006 to 2007 were women. Women form the majority of all graduates under 45. Yet few women make it to the boards of companies in either country. In the UK, the proportion of women on FTSE 100 boards rose fractionally from 11.7% to 12.2% last year, according to the Cranfield University School of Management, but that was only because of a fall in the size of the boards. In the US, women accounted for 15.2% of board seats on Fortune 500 companies, according to Catalyst, the research organization, which said the numbers had barely budged for 5 years. They call it the marshmallow test. A 4 to 6-year-old child sits alone in a room at a table, facing a marshmallow on a plate. The child is told, if you don't eat this treat for 15 minutes, you can have both it and a second one. Kids on average wait for 5 or 6 minutes before eating the marshmallow. The longer a child can resist the treat has been correlated with higher general competency later in life. Now a study shows that ability to resist temptation isn't strictly innate, it's also highly influenced by environment. Researchers gave 5-year-olds used crayons and one sticker to decorate a sheet of paper. One group was promised a new set of art supplies for the project, but then never received it. But the other group did receive new crayons and better stickers. Then both groups were given the marshmallow test. The children who had been lied to waited for a mean time of 3 minutes before eating the marshmallow. The group that got their promised materials resisted an average of 12 minutes. Thus, the researchers note that experience factors into a child's ability to delay gratification. When previous promises have been hollow, why believe the next one? As economic troubles flare up around the globe, the earning estimates of American firms who do business abroad begin to flatten. Without these international consumers to buy their products, there are fewer sales, which means that inventories pile up. When there is more supply than demand, prices go down. Lower prices would normally cause demand to pick up, but in an uncertain economy people tend to postpone purchases. We see this tendency in the American economy with computer products where consumers believe that the prices will go down if they wait another 6 months, so they decide to hold off. This tendency causes further gluts in the market, which eventually leads manufacturers to slow production. They lay off workers, causing domestic consumption to fall further since there is less money to buy goods. These effects ripples throughout the economy and create a deflationary spiral that can lead to a recession or even a depression.